So I'm going to do a quick introduction for our guests today, Dami and Scott. Dami and I actually, I feel like if there's some students you remember, and Dami is one of them, that I always remember. There's a lot of reasons for it, but I think, and I'm not reading this off script, and I'll read the script shortly, but I think being a woman and being in this field, it's really challenging. And I think Dami has worked really, really hard trying to get herself out there. Not necessarily her grades weren't the highest all the time, I would say, yeah. But she really has a very positive attitude towards her work, and is always wanting to learn and do more and do the next thing, and like really hustles, I think, and which I really appreciate about her. So she's a health technology professional with expertise in AI-driven, regulated software as a medical device product. She's a program manager at Caption Health, which was acquired by GE Healthcare. You oversee a $45 million Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation initiative focused on developing AI-driven obstetrics ultrasound technology to improve maternal health globally. Her career spans from quality engineering roles at Google Health, Clearly, and Medtronic, where she has led cross-functional teams to deliver innovative healthcare solutions while ensuring regulatory compliance and safety. Dami holds a master's in, you guys can guess, medical product development management from San Jose State, and a bachelor's in bioproducts and biosystems engineering from University of Minnesota. Awesome. Well, let's welcome Dami to our guest lecture series today. And then we have Scott. Scott and Dami, can you remind me which year you graduated? 2020?
I actually did my program in 3 years. So I was a 2022 and 2023 class.
2022, 2023.
So I graduated 2023, but I have the 2022 class.
Perfect. 2022, okay. You started with 2022 or 21?
I started with the class of 2022.
22, okay.
But I graduated in 2023.
Okay,
Yes.
And Scott graduated in 2019. So just to give you guys some different perspectives from folks today. So Scott is currently a senior solutions engineer at Cerebell. Before I get into all this stuff that Scott has provided me about his background, I think there's a lot of cool things about Scott, and that was, one of the things that you did is you went to the South by Southwest conference. Have you guys heard of South by Southwest? And I think what I want, and we'll talk about that more, but I think attending those kind of events that are different from the medical product development sector really opens your mind up to a whole nother world. And then you can bring all those ideas to the table, right? And that makes you very different and unique compared to your peers. So I personally thought that was a very smart move on part of Scott to do that, right? I don't know, do you agree, Scott, or what do you think? Do you feel like that helped you at all? Or?
Going to South by Southwest?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not a med tech conference. It's it's film and interactive media. But they were interested in health technology because it's something that's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So I was able to talk about things that I talk about all the time at work, but you can see people's eyes open up like, wow, this is the future. So it was a really cool experience to see people get excited about health technology.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Scott is currently a senior solutions engineer at Cerebell, the developer of the first AI-powered point-of-care EEG diagnostic system that's transforming the diagnosis and management of patients with serious neurological disorders or conditions. He's highly sought after health technology journalist, having most recently spent past 12 years at MedGadget, is that what you say? One of the world's most trafficked and linked to medical blogs on the internet. Scott's past experiences include expansion of business and management accounts for the West Coast at InfoBionic, supporting the launch of Peak Surgical, which was acquired by Medtronic in 2011, assisting in the development of neoglycosides, a new class of antibiotics shown to combat drug-resistant bacteria, connecting health entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators. Those three words is what always, when I think of Scott, those three words come to the top of mind. Connecting health entrepreneurs, investors, and bio-innovators at Rock Health, and selling the world's best Apple products at Apple. Scott holds an MS degree in medical product development management at San Jose State and a BS in biomedical engineering from University of Southern California. So please welcome Scott to our So maybe I want to open our conversation to just kind of giving folks an idea of who you are. Like, so when I say, Dami, how do you describe yourself? What would you say?
I would say you used one word that was perfect, a hustler. I think go-getter, I think that's one thing that I would probably say, and resilient. There are a lot of things that kind of knock me down, just gonna get back up every single time, so I think that's probably a few words I would describe myself. So
Okay.
someone who gets up every time, and anytime something knocks me down, I won't tell. So you wouldn't be able to tell that I've been knocked down, so yeah.
Yeah, what about you, Scott?
Probably engineer. I studied biomedical engineering in college. I was always like a math science nerd even in high school. And even though I'm not really in like strict engineering anymore, I still use engineering to problem solve, to think about how to create the best solutions for our customers. So in a sense, I'm doing engineering all the time.
Yeah. So you both have like different backgrounds and different ways you think. So it appears that you've actually worked in the industry before you joined the program in medical product development. So can you like tell us a little bit about like what skill sets you found to be most valuable as you were kind of developing your career in the field?
Yeah, so probably the biggest one, to be honest, is customer service. I graduated in 2009, like middle of the last recession, and when Kunal mentioned Apple products, I was literally working at the Apple store at the mall. And I thought it was kind of a setback, but it taught me a lot of really valuable customer service skills that I used on my next job, which was with St. Jude Medical, now Abbott, because I was doing what's called technical services engineering there, basically doing clinical support for the doctors, the nurses, the reps. And so I was using my customer service skills. And pretty much every job afterwards involved a lot of customer-facing roles, conversations, things like that. So I think, even though it started at Apple, like I use customer service skills a lot. It's been really, really helpful.
Is there a customer service experience that was like a really important learning experience for you?
Probably it was at Abbott at St. Jude, because you are learning all these algorithms, how pacemakers and defibrillators work. And you have to explain this sometimes to patients who don't know anything about medical technology or technology as a whole. So being able to take these very technical medical concepts and then kind of explain them in a way that regular people can understand was a challenge, but it was a very big kind of growing process.
So how did you explain it to them?
A lot of analogies, illustrations, everyday terminology, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Dami? What skills do you think have helped you in your career development?
I would say I've been in the med device, whether software or hardware, since I graduated from college. And there's one thing that you don't necessarily learn in undergrad, except from this program, is how to really understand the regulations behind these medical product development. So when I started my first job, I had an incredible manager who said, you are going to become a lead auditor. And I'm like, I don't even have the experience of being a lead auditor, but he was like, this is going to help you build the foundation of becoming I was a quality engineer then. So he said, you need to understand the ISO 13485, it's very important, and the FDA regulations to be able to do your job. And that has helped me. Then I was in hardware, and then I was able to take those skills and transition to the AI industry, because they are now subject to the FDA regulations, and being able to understand what those means, how to look at them, and how to consider the FDA regulations during product development was very helpful. Now, even as a program manager, I'm managing the program, but if I hear something and I'm like, not acceptable, so I can actually speak up, and from my background and experience and understanding that foundation of what does it take to comply to the FDA, or not even just the FDA, any regulatory agent across the world. I think it's very important to really get that foundation, because if you want to stay within the medical product and industry, I think it's a great skill to gain. Yeah,
so learning about regulations, and so the regulations are always changing, so how do you keep yourself current with the different regulations?
I think staying up to date within I'm pretty close with our regulatory team. So they're one place that I really lean on, even though I'm not really in that space anymore. I really lean on them to understand, okay, what has changed, especially in the software as a medical device. I don't know if you're aware, and you're an SMD, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Similar.
Perfect. So similar, somewhat similar.
Well, it is also a medical product.
Yeah.
Well, the software is a medical product, and also there is a hardware
Hardware component
medical
to it,
product. Yeah, there's
so-
two things to that.
Yeah.
With Scott. Yeah.
So it's always changing. When I was at Google Health, India was moving from regulation. I think they were introducing their software as a medical device regulations around that time. So we had to transition that. So they had done something 2 years ago, now they're doing something else. So it's always changing, so always being able to keep up to that, understanding how that's changing, really leaning on your regulatory team. Don't only go to them when you want to ask, is this okay? Try to stay in touch with them because they are a wealth of knowledge, and I think it's very important to really rely and lean on them a lot. So
Sure. So you kind of are gravitated towards regulatory affairs.
exactly.
You said about like your manager encouraging you to like be a lead auditor.
Yeah.
But what do you feel like? How much was it him encouraging you, and how much was you kind of telling him or her that you were interested in other opportunities?
I would say, I'm not ashamed to say, when I first started my career, it was him saying, you need to get this done. But I realized how instrumental that certification was to my career and subsequent jobs. I'm like, I have something for you to pay for. I want to get this certificate done. That's why I then looked into this degree. So it really started from that certification. And I'm like, how can I expand my skills more? Then I just sat down. Please don't hear me, my previous manager, doing work. I'm like, where can I actually get a degree that would really tailor to this? What degree would cover regulatory affairs? We had 2 reg affairs classes, the farmer and the med device. And that's how I then actually found this program. And then they paid for it. So I got some of it. So that was really nice. So really pushing for that. Once my manager initiated me into the exposure, the professional development within the company,
Yeah.
then I didn't get that.
Are you doing other things, both of you, are you doing other things right now that you've graduated from the program? What other things are you doing to keep yourself current or interested in new areas, or maybe it's related, maybe it's work-related training, but maybe it's other things that you're just interested in? I'm curious how you're managing your career now.
I mean, as a medical device journalist, a med tech journalist, I'm always kind of looking at the news. I've got, MedExpress in my news feed, so I'm always kind of reading about new technologies. Not necessarily related to my job, but I just enjoy reading about med tech. I think for my job, I'm in constant contact with my boss. We chat about AI, we chat about medical devices, direction that Cerevel's going, my current company, and he just kind of gives me opportunities if he sees that there's a fit.
Got it. So what is it, a MedExpress?
Medical Express. It's
Medical
like a
Express.
medical news website. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. What about you?
I think you probably testified to this. I'm looking into other master's program. I applied to one, I didn't get it, but obviously looking forward to doing potentially another master's program that would really go into my business acumen, because it's one thing to understand how to develop a product, but how do you take it to market? How do you sustain it in the market? So that other side of the development is very important. I think I'm slightly missing that component. There was one class we took in this program, the business law class. As a program manager for a program that has to do with for-profit company partner with a non-profit company, they have to meet in the middle because they want different things. So I'm on calls at 5 a.m. in the morning with the 2 legal departments going at it, and I'm just like, oh my God. But I understand it because I built that foundation with that business law class. I forget the professor we had, but she made us come to class Saturday for like 3 hours, and I was like, oh my God. But I remember, and it's really helped me understand what contracts we need. And even talking to my team, AI has to do with a lot of data. Data is such a huge foundation to AI now, and how you access it and how you use it is so important. You have to be very careful from a legal standpoint. So having that foundation of understanding when do we need to put an agreement in place, what kind of agreement, I got that all from here. So I didn't get that in my engineering degree, that's for sure. So it was definitely this program that helped me leverage that foundation to then grow in it. So hopefully in the future, I'm trying to dive deep into the business side. I think this really set the tone for me, and hopefully I can get to that more in the future.
What does your typical day look like right now? Like, for what you do, like as a solutions engineer?
Yeah, so my team is basically the technical support. To be honest, our device is pretty basic to use. You turn it on, program a few things, and that's it. So we take phone calls from the doctors, the nurses who use our devices, the EEG techs, and our sales reps. So that's kind of the main responsibilities, phone calls and emails. I also help out with the pre-sales process. So if the salesperson has targeted a hospital that's interested in our technology, this hospital will probably have some sort of security questionnaire all about our technology. Those questionnaires go to me to fill out and answer, and any meetings that they have with questions about the technical aspects, the IT aspects of our product, I'll hop on those meetings and answer those questions, and really kind of guide them all through that process. Once they sign the contracts, we help get the devices configured on Wi-Fi. We make sure they're all set up to go. We make sure all the users are good. We'll help the salespeople with any kind of training needs that they might have. And then, like I mentioned, after they are a customer, we help them out with any problems 24/7.
Yeah. So did you have to do any special certification to learn about security and so on?
Not really. It was kind of a requirement of my job to know the basics. And a lot of it really is on-the-job training, thankfully. If you know the basics of how networking and Wi-Fi works, then that was good enough for me.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
My day is never the same. I'm, cooling down fires here and there. This morning I actually had a meeting with the Gates Foundation that just popped up. So things are popping up every single day and it's never the same. The only thing that stays the same is my weekly service update meeting. That's the only thing that stays constant. Everything else is just never the same. But I will probably say a typical week perhaps would be making sure that my ML engineers have what they need, understanding things from a resourcing standpoint. I tend to interact a lot with the senior management just to make sure they have what they need to ensure that their direct reports are successful. I was just also helping out to fix things in a sense. So I'm talking about data again, it's such a huge thing. So I had an MLM manager reach out to me, hey Dami, have we signed this agreement? I'm like, oh God, I don't know, I have to check. So it really is running around, but it's not just running around, it's understanding when you need to run, when you need to fix things. So I think that, again, going back to understanding the regulations, standards, it makes you anticipate risk faster, and that really is what the program manager job is. This is my first program manager job, and I would like to give it to this program because I transitioned right after I got the program, so we got the degree, and it really helped me leverage it in my interviews because people don't tend to want to give people program management jobs unless you have the experience. How do you get the experience? So I leverage my degree. I have the experience, I have the foundations to do this job, so I think.
Yeah. So did you, and then did people get back to you, or did you have to do things to get their attention?
I think for me, I have job hopped a couple of times. I've had different experiences. The current job I have, it was a code application. I didn't know what program I would be managing. I just knew it was at a company that just got acquired. I wanted to get in and see what they were doing. And when I got on the introduction call, I was like, you need to hire me. This is a great program. I'm from Nigeria.
Did you say that? Did you say you need to hire me?
I didn't say that, but I tried. I conveyed that they needed to hire me.
How did you convey that?
I think it was just leveraging, having a good story is very important in job interviews. You can't just answer questions, it has to connect. So the program manager job, they told me it has to do with the Gates Foundation. They wanted to develop and deploy AI products in low-middle-income country. I come from Nigeria, so I used that to leverage, my interview. And then also they were doing a grant. I also was a founding president of the National Society of Black Engineers. It's NESB. If you know NESB, it's a very popular student organization. So I founded a chapter here. And then when they asked me, have you ever, raised money? I'm like, hell yeah, I had to raise money for my organization. So I leveraged that. There's all these skills from so many places that you don't think is helpful. It ends up being helpful. You never know when you can pull that card out. So just creating a story for yourself. Even when you're not looking for a job, when you do something new, how does that fit into your overall story? I think that's very important. So that was
yeah, I love that story, and I think I can understand the NASB example you gave, and doing fundraising for the organization. And I know some of you might be graduating next year, but if you are not graduating, you're going to be here for another year. I think considering joining the medical product development management council, so we have like a student council now, and we kind of got it started, but we need leaders to run with it, right? And I feel like those skill sets of like raising money, even for the student council, like count towards when you are actually trying to do your interviews. Because you can use those examples. So like, have you done a budget? Yeah, I've managed a budget. And it doesn't matter if it's $10 or is it $100,000. I think it's just the fact that you've had that experience, and I think the hiring manager is just trying to, in some ways, just checking that box off and say, okay. I think they're trying to find reasons to hire you, and I think you have to give them those reasons.
And then just to add to that, nothing is too small.
Mm.
You might look at it and say, well, this is not a big deal. It is a big, if you make it a big deal, it is a big deal. Everything about me, I take this time and I blow it up so big. So it is a big deal. Nothing is too small for you. So I think that's another very important thing to note. I think my degree, bioproducts and bioscience, nobody really knows of that, but I make it something. So I'm like, it's a very great degree. It's like chem but think of biological system, think of the blood, think of this, transport in the blood, this. So I make it like so big, and we're like a tiny class of 50, but you're never gonna know that. I'm the chemical engineering class like 300, 500 people, but who's gonna know that? No one. Now you guys know, but no one.
Yeah, I think what you said reminds me of two things. One is like the blue ocean strategy. I think we've talked about that a little bit before. Like where you don't want to go where the red ocean is, where there's blood in the water. You want to go where the water is nice and blue, and you want to sail there, right? So I think just kind of thinking creative ways of communicating, right?
Yeah.
And also like just being big fish in a small pond also I think is kind of helpful, I would say. Like, there's very few people that have a degree like medical product development management, so I think kind of leveraging that and I think being able to explain that to people, because people don't really understand what it means, and I think when you walk them through that, then they start visualizing, okay, this is probably what this student has done.
Exactly, and just to add to that, your LinkedIn is so powerful. I got my Google job through that. I was like, why are you reaching out to me? They reached out to me. I'm like, okay, I think I'm someone now. So I never applied until my offer, and I had to create a Gmail to get that offer. So I got that job through Google.
I love it.
Yeah, so
what a cool story.
Utilize your LinkedIn, make it as good as possible. Don't just think it's some platform that's just there. Create a story for yourself. Again, back to the storytelling. You have to really convey a message to people so that they're interested in coming to talk to you. So I think I got my Google job from them, and I think the Clearly job was another recruiter reached out for a different company. I was like the second best, but they remembered me. I left a good impression, and then they were like, I have this job for you. You're gonna love it. The interview took like 3 days, the offer was signed. So really leave good impressions, tell a story, make your online profile great. I know the influencer life is, is happening now, but try to be a good influencer, if you want to, do the good thing, So I think just giving yourself a good online presence is so important as you start,
Correct.
your career. Yeah.
So one of the things we did at the career workshop, and I think all of you were there, if I'm remembering, we used an AI tool to create the About Us section, right, of the LinkedIn profile. And I gave them a prompt, and then we fed the prompt into an AI tool, and then the AI tool spit out like, here's the About section for you, a unique About section for each of us. And I'm really hoping you guys do that and get and I think having a nice photo helps.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that example. So thank you. For you, I wanted to know, like, how did you learn about Cerebell? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's all about networking. Aside from learning great, important, useful content in your classes, you are connected with a network of your own peers and then the alumni group as well. Because after I graduated, I was working with a medical device startup, and then I got laid off, and this was during COVID. And the 2 jobs I've had since were both because of this program. I worked for a medical software company for a year, and one of my classmates, she was working there, and so I reached out to her because I saw that there was an opening at her company that met, my skills, and she got me in. She put in a good word with who was my boss, and I got in really quickly. And my job with Cerebell, I don't know how I actually found about the company. Probably through my journalism job, but I found out that Kunal was an employee there. And so of course I reached out to him, and he put in a good word with the company, the hiring manager, who became my boss, and yeah, Kunal helped me get the job that I'm currently at. So it's all about the networking, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think there's people like right in our surroundings that we just need to ask for help, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about like your journalist job? Because I don't think I fully understand, and I think people would love to know more.
Yeah, so when I graduated from my undergrad in 2009, again, another recession, I was having a lot of trouble finding a job, but I had been a big fan of this blog called Med Gadgets. At the time, blogs were still very popular, and if you want to learn about medical technology, they were like the source to go, because they wrote about anything and everything kind of medical related, and they catered to an audience of, doctors, nurses, biomedical engineers like me, and it was independent too, so it wasn't with a company. And so I kind of reached out to the head editor out of pity, like, hey, I need a job. Can you help me? Can you connect me with people that you know? And he said, hey, I feel bad for you. Why don't you write for us? We'll pay you a little bit. You'll have the opportunity to go to conferences and network with people. And for me, that was kind of a dream. Like, I would have done it for free. So I joined, and interestingly, writing was like something I dreaded in college. So it's kind of ironic that I ended up doing writing as a kind of a side hustle. So I started doing that, and as my name kind of got out there, I got invited to conferences. I got invited to different countries to kind of see what their medical device scene was like. And yeah, I've been doing that for about 12 years. Unfortunately, Med Gadget recently shut down, but I'm in the process of maybe starting my own thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
So just for both of you, I'm curious, like, what's like your next step in your career? Like, what growth areas are you kind of keeping your eye on in where you think you might fit in?
I think I kind of touched on that a bit. AI, again, is going to be such a huge thing. But one thing that we're all still figuring out is how do we make money from it? Like, OpenAI, they're burning billions. I mean, they're making money, but they're still burning billions. So how do you find that balance and really make it profitable while also considering the ethical side of things, making sure it's safe? So bringing that balance, I do want to hopefully be at the forefront of, strategizing to figure this out. So I'm hoping to leverage, my experience here, education-wise, connections, people who have been through like emerging technologies, like when it started, so how did they figure that out? So I think that's one part that I'm trying to grow. I would like to say my years of experience, but I just hit like 5 this year, so I'm still kind of in my early mid.
5 years of experience?
5 years
okay.
of experience,
Mm-hmm.
So, but I act like I have 10. I try to not make it known. I don't want nobody to know, so I just I try not to like show my years so that they understand that when I speak in our meetings, listen, don't think my years of experience, determine who I am or how I say anything. So, and you have to be very confident. So yeah, anyways, my hope is that I do want to be at the forefront of having to figure out how do we take and sustain AI within the healthcare in the market. So I think that's one piece that is missing. Taking it through the regulatory pathway, you get approved, you get cleared. Easy to say it's not approved, it's cleared, you get it cleared. So how do you then keep it in the market? How do you keep people paying for it? I think that's one part in the startups I worked at that they sort of struggled in, and a lot of startups struggle with that. So I think that's one part I need to help figure out.
I love it, yeah. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I think my personal career, I'm not at 100% sure. I do know that there's a lot of opportunities at my company, Cerebell. They just went public, so they've got a lot of money. And we're still a relatively small company, relatively small team, but we've got a lot of vision. Even though our technology is EEG kind of brain monitoring, there's a lot of potential applications out there. And so, I'm very close with the hardware team, so as the opportunities come up, I partner with them and give my expertise and help them out best I can. So I'm not really sure where formally it's going to go, but I'm just dabbling everywhere, and I like kind of being involved in different things. And certainly this program kind of helps because I have an understanding of a lot of different areas.
Got it. Okay. So you mentioned AI. Is there specific resources that you want to share that you are you're consuming or using?
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
That's my king right there. So I literally love it so much.
So how do you use it? Sorry.
I use it for so many things. I have on my personal laptop, it's on a tab constantly open. On my phone, I have the app. On my work laptop, I have it open. So even an email, like just check in, grammar check. So grammar check, code, and open code, close code. So every single time. And then one other part is even strategizing my future. The reason why I gave you a good answer is because I asked ChatGPT, what can I do with all this experience I've gotten to this day? And then it gave me a couple of options. Like, oh, I like this one, then we expand on that one. So really leveraging AI to help you build your future is so important. Even within, don't use it to cheat on your homework. Like, don't do that. But use it to understand. If you have questions around a particular topic, you can use it to just scroll through, study, understand where to go. And I think now they're including links, so you can actually link to and continue to read an article on and expand your knowledge on that. So I use it for so many things, but I find myself using it to build and understand what are the next steps I need to take in my career, what do I need to do now to prepare me for that next step. And it gives me good answers. Sometimes like, no, try again, I don't like that one, and then, it gives you better answers.
Sure.
So it's really helpful.
Cool, I love that. I actually came up with these questions using an AI tool.
There you go.
So also obviously not the follow-up questions that I'm asking as we're doing this conversation, but it definitely is a tool that you should be using on a regular basis. Yeah, I totally agree. What about you? Is there things that you're consuming right now that are fueling your desire to learn and grow? Anything comes to mind?
Just a lot of news. I'm a news junkie, so
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So the Cerebell you didn't find through the news though, right? No.
No, I actually don't remember for sure.
So how does news help? How do you? I know you like to consume the news, but how does it help you in professional side of things?
There's been a couple cases where news articles popped up that's been related to EEG, and I brought it up with my boss, and he goes, "Oh, that's kind of interesting. Let's kind of talk about it and see if it's something that we can kind of, whiteboard or just kind of discuss about an application or something like that." Yeah, just getting ideas flowing, because I think our company is very open to, trying things out and kind of seeing the potential for EEG monitoring.
I want to talk about your work-life balance with your jobs right now. Do you feel like you're working non-stop, or do you feel like you have a healthy balance? How is that? What does that look like right now? And how much of it is related to your company's needs versus your desire to do more? I think there's
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think for me, I was just telling a friend yesterday, I have merged work and life, and I have to merge that. Because I'm remote, I've been remote for a while, and it's just mixed in. PTO, I can just work no PTO, and I have unlimited PTO too, so to me, it's a scam, but it's a scam.
Scott has unlimited PTO.
Limited too. Now I'm trying to I'm going back to Nigeria in January. I'm like, I'm going to see you guys in 2 weeks. If you want to email me, I'm not going to see it. So I really want to create that boundary, because when you're remote, whether it's Monday, Friday, Saturday, you just feel like, I can just do something, but you have to create a boundary for yourself. It's not like the work-life balance is bad, because again, I don't have to stress and work. All the stress, I can't even tell when I'm overworked because it's so blended in, so I don't recommend that if you ever start remote work, or if you do work remotely, don't mix it up. Do the 9 to 5, shut down, resume tomorrow. So I think that was one big mistake, because I started working remotely once COVID hit. I was a Medtronic then, and that was January of 2020. It's now we're entering 2025. Still remote. So I think what I did, some companies have offices. This current company has an office in SF, but they have to beg me to see me there. So you are not making that drive down there. So I do go sometimes. I was there last week. Someone from the Gates Foundation visited us, so I had to go down just to say hi. But I'm mostly working from home, and the blend it's really bad. I'm being transparent here. So do not mix your actual life with work. If you're remote, keep that separation, keep that boundary. It's so important, because things would happen to you and you wouldn't realize should in a workplace because you just made life work. So how you react in life, you're going to react in work, and you should still keep it still corporate America. You still have to keep it as corporate America. So I think that's one thing I've learned from this, and I'm trying to make an adjustment. So nobody's perfect. I'm trying to keep that.
Keep that. What does that keep corporate America mean? What does that mean?
I mean, keep that boundary because
keep
you
that
know the boundary. No, not corporate America. Keep
Yeah.
the boundary because
Got
I think that they can suck all the energy out of you. So you have to know when to shut down. You have to know when to say, I'm not taking a call. I have a lot of colleagues on the East Coast waking up at 5, 4. I'm like, do not set up, like I had to block calendar. Like you have to do these things so that your life doesn't become work.
Yep. And your identity doesn't.
Because my identity, that was one reason I was like, why am I, what's the phrase here? Your work doesn't determine your worth. So your job doesn't determine your worth. And it started to become that for me. And I was like, whoa, no. So that boundary is very important. I've now realized. So, yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, my job's kind of unique. I am fully remote, but being basically clinical support, phone and email, my day kind of varies. Sometimes I'll get no calls or emails, and I'm just chilling at home, which is great. Some days it'll be a little bit busier. Some days I'll have security reviews to answer. Yeah, I think the culture of my company has been really good, and my team where, yeah, you come on at 9 and after 5 o'clock, there's not an obligation to do work. We all kind of keep our phones on, and it's pretty quiet, but especially we have to do on-call because we're a medical device. We help each other out sometimes when it's like 11 o'clock at night. But thankfully, other than that, I've never really had to deal with a work-life balance issue.
Okay.
Or that's kind of due to my job, I feel like.
Cool. All right, a couple more questions, and then we can open it up to you guys for questions. I want to talk about like salary negotiations. When you guys were like, you've had a couple of jobs, and have you had to negotiate your salary? And if so, how did you go about doing that?
100%. I'm known as the queen for this. And that's because I believe I deserve it. That's the first step. You have to believe you deserve it before you go into that room. Because if you think like, and most of it, I think the current job I have, they had a range. That didn't mean much to me. I'm like, okay. I went in knowing what I wanted. I pitched. They didn't meet that. We met in the middle. Fine with me. And also, whatever you want, add a couple extra. Because you're probably not going to get most of the time. Not going to get it. I think my Google offer, I said a number, and the recruiter was like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, "I know what I deserve." So, but I still said it, and she did her best. So even if you feel like, "Oh, I'm not sure if I have the years," again, I just reached 5, and I've been acting like I have like all these years of experience. Like nobody needs to know, the rest of the story. But you have to believe you deserve it. If you believe you deserve it, even if they say no, I'm be ready to hear no. Be ready to be rejected. Be ready to hear no's, and that will help you negotiate during these conversations, because they're gonna say no, and don't just be like, oh my god, I wish I didn't ask now, or don't be scared they're gonna take the offer back. That means that job is not for you, because if they really want you, one thing I realized, the jobs that really wanted me, they were open to listening and negotiating with me. If you don't really want me, why am I here? So have that confidence, and if you don't really want me, find someone. I know the market is crazy now, but just believe in yourself that you deserve it, and go get that money. That's what I have to say, yeah.
Scott, what is your perspective on this?
Yeah, I've never really negotiated my salary, but
Now you're thinking.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I've had to, you definitely want to do your research
Sure.
beforehand, look to see what, the expected salary range is, especially here in the Bay Area, and have a number in mind, add a little bit, that's totally okay. Just because there was, one of my first jobs, I didn't do the research, and I kind of got lowballed, and I'm like, wow, I wish I thought about it a little bit more, so I could have asked for more, but yeah, if anything, at least do your research, you kind of know whether or not you're getting lowballed.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, just at least being aware and like what,
If you're in like tech, levels FYI is like my Bible. Like it shows you, even if you have like software, it's like it shows you
like layered on it.
levels.
Levels on FYI. Levels on FYI.
FYI.
Is the website.
Like you have all these companies, it will show you like the base, and like everyone puts it in, so you show like it's anonymous, which is good. put it in, you see people's base, the burnouts for their different levels, years of experience, years of experience in the company, outside the company, so you kind of have that. So it's, and also Blind, Blind is the, like it's my newspaper, that's my news. It's an app called Blind. It's anonymous with all this, like within the Bay or like across the Blind. It's a very good app. Everything you need to know is on there. So when I got an offer, anonymously, I was like, hi guys, what do you think of this? Should I ask for more? They were like, it's enough. I'm like, no, it's not. There's people like, oh no, ask for more. So you have like people across the industry telling people who've been through this, telling you what they think is good or it's not good. And then you have not just salary talks, but you also have, oh, I had this experience with my manager, how do I handle this? Oh my God, or like the tech guys, I'm struggling with leak coding, what do I do here? So it's a really good application to get current updates around, because you're in Silicon Valley, you need to act like you're in Silicon Valley. So I think that's a very good app to have handy all the time. So it's a quite good place.
So Blind, and then we'll start at 5. Got it. Cool. Cool resources. Anything else you'd like to add or share? That you're like, I need to give this message to others today.
I would say it's not always good things that happen. Sometimes bad things happen in the workplace and personal life. Layoffs happen. I've been through a layoff. My first job out of college, 5 months in, they're shutting down the plants. I was like, I'm sorry, what? I just flew from Minnesota to California, and you're shutting down the plant. But they gave us like an 18-month gap. But that experience, it really builds character. And when something happens, like if like you deem as a failure, use it as a stepping stone, not a stumbling stone. I think that's something I've always allowed myself to do. I don't just be a Debbie Downer, oh my God, this happened, that's the end of my career. No, that's a leverage I use to go to the next. It pushes me to even do more. It's not, now I have to show you, she never laid me off, you know, because I put in that more beam that I can do it. So if anything happens, that take a step back, reflect, and then go for it. But don't take a step back and stay back. Move forward. So yeah, I think that's one thing. And corporate politics, I am now learning that it is a lot. It is, when I say, I'm like, why do I have to, I don't want to experience this, but you're going to at some point experience that, especially in the role that I'm in, like the program manager, I am in constant contact with the senior leadership team. The visibility is higher, which comes with the price. So I am now learning, but I'm open to learn. So you also have to be open to learn. And you don't know everything, so accept that you don't know everything, and then I think that would really help you.
Yeah, just don't be afraid to try anything and everything. Like I said, who knew that working at the mall would land me a job eventually here at Cerebral? You never know the connection, even if it's totally unrelated to your career or your skill set. You just never know. So don't be afraid to say yes, to try things out, to fail, to learn.
I love that. Yeah, don't be afraid to say yes and take some chances. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. We'll open it up to questions, but I wanted to yeah, we can do an open forum here and see what other questions you guys may have that we didn't discuss.
So since you guys are MBTM alumni, I want to see in what ways do you guys leverage the program in the interviews? Do you guys like focus on specific class, or do you talk about it like collectively, just based on your experience?
So the question is, how do you leverage the program?
Yeah, the master's
do you like talk about specific courses, or do you talk about the program as a whole?
the whole, yeah.
Is that right? Is
Yes.
that your question? Okay.
I think I can go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I think for me, on my resume, how I have this, I'm just gonna say how I remember the degree, and then I pick a couple of classes that are relevant to that specific role that I'm applying to. I pick those because I know some questions may come when I can tell that, oh, I gained the skills in this particular class. One thing, I had an interview with Apple. I don't know, we're recording, right? Never again. It was never again. So it was just fireblazing. I think it was one of my first like big tech interviews, and I gave like a whole spiel about my life. The guy goes, "You talk a lot." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I learned you're gonna keep it short and sweet. So if I spend majority of my time telling them what the program is and they didn't ask me, I have just wasted I have lost their attention. So that was a huge learning for me. So I pick what is relevant to that specific interview. So if they ask me a question, oh, have you done a budget before? Do you understand agreements, or have the regulatory class, or even the capsule? I use the capsule a lot, funny enough, because my team did like a hard watch thing, product development, which made us see through like marketing, building a budget, clinical trials. I kind of use that to leverage. I've seen the whole product development through. I really have a reality, but I did it in that capsule class. So really narrow it to it, so they don't tell you talk too much. Narrow it down and short and concise. So
one of the things we talked about in the career workshop is the 50-50 time, right? You talk 50% of the time and let your employer talk 50% of the time in an interview, basically. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, we just did that a few weeks ago. So cool. What about you, Scott? What do you think?
I think it just kind of depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking just regular people that aren't in medical technology, they'll say, yeah, I have a degree in medical product development management. That's a handful to say already. So oftentimes I have to explain, oh yeah, it's a master's program that it's all about bringing a medical product, a drug, device, biologic, from the idea to market. But sometimes if I'm talking with, the regulatory people in my company, I can say, oh yeah, I took a class at San Jose State that talked about, regulating class 2 products and things like that. So I can go a little bit more specific.
I love it.
So how is the field as women in tech? And it's not just about being underrepresented in management roles, but also in terms of trials. Do you think that your opportunity is in a way also helping you to pave or shape clinical trials, or any of the job aspects of trying to bring in some representation? Do you think that kind of because I feel like getting a seat at the table is not enough for women, but also that voice should be heard, and that's just not something that, oh yeah, but you have a chair at the table, it's not a pity or it's not something out of sympathy, but it's truly being able to represent, make decisions, and really bring in some sort of change. So where do you see yourself doing that, and how do you feel the narrative is right now?
That's a good question. Where do I start? So I think being a woman of color too, it is harder. And even as much as you try to act like it's like, it is a lot harder to prove yourself. You have to prove yourself, but people are just like, oh, they've got it. You have to work your way to prove, which I don't agree. I don't like. But I think where I see myself, even helping great other women, helping make sure their voices are heard, is when I'm in a room with another person that looks like me, that I can tell they're trying to speak, but they aren't being heard. Well, I'm very confident. I used to go at it with Professor Canal, like we used to go at it to the first time. So you have to be very confident in yourself, and there's some people who don't really have that confidence, and you should keep your eye out and notice your neighbors. So I think there was a admission for a different master's program that they had in San Francisco. This man was just talking, and I could see a girl trying to say, and I'm like, can you hold on a second? Go ahead and talk. So sometimes you have to be the one to actually do something to help another person, because they won't necessarily have what it takes. My brother is the opposite of me. He doesn't want issues. He's like really quiet. So, and he's a man, but he's really, But I'm like, you have to hear me. But also you have to come in knowledgeable, know when to talk. Because if you're trying to talk all the time and they're like, oh, this girl again, that's not good for you. So knowing when to talk and also being knowledgeable. So when I started my career, I used to just go for meetings. Okay, I have a meeting now. You need to prep for the meeting. Know what the meeting is about. Do your preparation. So when you go in there, it's always good to say a word, but make sure the word you say is good. So that every time you talk, they listen. So if you do it once, you do it twice, the third time, Dami's talking, let's listen. So I think that's one thing that I'll probably say that's helped me so far. When I join a new company, I have to build that reputation. It's unfortunate, but you have to build it. So you also have to do the work yourself.
I love your suggestion about prepping for the meeting. Just don't walk into the meeting. And I'm not talking about even 2 minutes. Just jotting down 3 things. Sometimes I don't even have time to jot down things, and I'll just make mental notes. But I think jotting down 3 things that you want to convey, or things you want to get out of that conversation, are really important. I mean, we kind of somewhat talked about it in that book, Super Communicators, that was the people that were taking the project management class, that where, you know, what is this conversation about? Is it a decision-making conversation? Is it how do we feel conversation? Or is it an emotional conversation, right? Or like identity, like what's your identity, like social identity. So there's different types of conversations, and I think before you go into a meeting, you kind of want to understand what conversation you're having.
Exactly, and it's also on the flip side, when you set up a meeting, give that person an agenda. Sometimes when I started, I used to just be like, I'll tell them when we start the meeting. So they start, oh, what's this meeting about? I haven't given them time to prep for the meeting. So I had to learn that. So every meeting I have now, it has, even if it's 3 bullet points, it has an agenda, even if it's a paragraph, I'm telling them what we're meeting about so that they can prepare. So when I work really closely with the founder of the startup I'm going to acquire like this, because he's the PI of the program manager. When I first started working with him, I could just tell he was very agitated because I would come, just see what I have to do, and he's like, what are you? So I had to learn that he's the kind of person that he needs to know what he's meeting for, have the agenda so he can also prepare, and we can have a very productive meeting. So it's both ways, you prepare but allow the other person to prepare as well if you are the one setting up the meeting. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, I've had this week, last couple of weeks, I've had a physician who I invited on a call and she didn't show up. And the reason was, I just found out yesterday, is there was no agenda that was shared. And if there's no agenda that's shared, people are not going to show up. So now the action is for me to set an agenda so then that person shows up.
You learn these things when people tell you what's this meeting about.
And also when I know, it's not that, sometimes you're busy and you don't do it and then you pay a price.
Yes.
This one.
Yes.
Scott, what are your thoughts? I know you're not a woman of color per se, but just kind of trying to remember the question. What is it about?
I think we can all advocate
Yeah.
and try to bring in that, make it more gentle, inclusive.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to the conversation that you'd like to? No. Okay.
I just had one more question to both of you actually. So when we really, so there were some really insightful points that came out of this conversation as to make a mark, but also know when to restrain and when to really go above and beyond. So when you start, when you join a company and it's new, how do you read those dynamics? How do you read the room? And then is there any kind of tips or recommendations or suggestions that you can give us from a place of, like where we can start and even if you utter 2 words and that's of value, but also when to go above and beyond. And do you think really also, this is a personal question, that when you start out in your career that you really need to put in more hours to become more visible or to kind of leave a mark? Do you think that is necessary?
I know for me, I try and build a really good rapport with my manager because they're supposed to be like fighting for you. They're supposed to be helping you get in the door in other projects and taking on other things and helping your career path. So I think that's one thing that you can do. Either you're not feeling necessarily like self-motivated, at least like get to know your manager so he knows your strengths, your weaknesses, and if he can kind of fight for you and get you other places.
Totally.
I think for me, I always tell friends, you don't have to put in so many hours, more than you need to think that you need that to succeed. That's a very wrong assumption that a lot of people think, because now you're putting energy towards working so much when you could divert that into like preparing for the next steps. So don't feel like for you to succeed in a job, you have to show them you're putting in hours. Take a step back and make whatever the impact is what matters. So if it takes you 5 hours to make a huge impact, 5 hours. Like there's no need for you to start finding something to do.
Yep.
Like it's just not necessary. Like divert that energy into something else. I think that's very important. And then I think you asked going above and beyond and when to just meet the expectation. It really depends. Your manager is very important in your career. I've had good ones, I've had one not so good. It really depends on your support system in the company, the culture of the company. There's some people are going above and they aren't getting any reward for going above. And you have people just meeting and they're still, so you have to be strategic. You have to be able to answer that question yourself, depending on the company. So take a step back and really study everyone, make friends with people, but also don't talk too much. Don't, so I think that's very important. So just be very strategic. It changes. Like I've worked at 4 companies now, and none of them have been the same in terms of do I go above, do I go below. I just do what I think is needed at the time.
Makes sense.
That's it. So yeah.
I use the 80-20 principle, right? We've talked a little bit about it, and I know you're not taking that course yet, but you guys have. It's by Richard Koch. It's a book, and basically using, figuring out what is the 20% that you're gonna put your effort on that's gonna give maybe 80% difference. Like you don't have to be like hustling all the time. You just have to like figure out what's like the most critical. And I think even like, at least my experience working at Cerebral also, there's like a set of things that, a lot of companies have like these objectives and those goals, and if you're contributing towards that, that's what's going to matter the most, more than anything else, right? So, and I love that feedback, like your thoughts about like working with your manager and how can you like really leverage your manager, because they are supposed to technically, not all managers will do it, but that's their job, is to help you with your career development and so on. Cool. All right. Well, is there anything else? Any other questions? If not, we'll call it a wrap. Go for it.
One thing is in LinkedIn, or not all companies, they in their hiring page, they're gonna hire this job position. They put the salary range. If you feel you're more than that, or would you pursue it, or?
100%. If I think the role, I like the role 100%, because I believe they're gonna love me so much that I'm gonna tell them my number and they're gonna meet my number. You have to believe in yourself. Like the way I believe in myself is on another level. I really truly believe I deserve this thing. So you have to believe it. So if you see a role,
Not in an obnoxious way.
absolutely, not in an obnoxious way. But you have to believe in yourself and then still be very humble about it. But if you see a role that you love it, apply. Don't say, oh, it's too low for me. Why is it too? How do you know that they don't have the budget to make it bigger for you? Because they really like you, they really want you. So people go above and beyond for people they really want, and they're only gonna know that they want you if you apply. If you don't apply, they're not gonna know that they want you. So I think apply for any and everything. I think there's no need to say, I don't want this. But if you like the role, don't just pick on every role that isn't applicable to your skills and experience. If it fits your experience, if it's your skills, you like it, the salary is still apply, then get it, then negotiate. But I mean, it might be a waste of time, but if you really want it, do it in hopes that will, move it for you a little bit. So yeah, that's my advice. Yeah.
Solid advice. Anything else, Scott?
No, I mean the range they give you is a good starting point, but again, do your own independent research. And yeah, just kind of, believe in yourself, be confident. Yeah.
Also, that's like more of a requirement from the government to have those ranges available publicly. When I was at Abbott, they had this range even before the government required it. There's like a PDF document that is posted on the HR side where it shows all the different levels. Like, if you're at different levels, like grade 16, grade 18, grade 20, grade 21, and what the salary bands were, and they were like the low and the high, and then the midpoint, and their goal is to try to keep you at the midpoint as many people as possible. But then there was a high, but then there was like an ultra high, like a maximum, not to, and that upper limit, I don't think that they ever published that, but there was always, some people just want to be in that role forever, and then somehow over the years, they get to that maximum amount, and then that's the maximum. So it's pretty broad. I think those ranges were like, I think there was like at least a $50,000 difference from the low to the high. So you can imagine that's a pretty big delta, for like pretty, like I would say like mid-level roles. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and making it so engaging and sharing your experiences and inspiring us to launch our own careers. So